Welcome everyone to our Wednesday, December 19, 2018 school committee meeting. And let me introduce the school committee members. Tony Gelfi, who should be arriving shortly. We have Ms. Rachel King, Ms. Lillian Holbrook, Mr. Michael Dolan, our vice chair, Mr. Kevin Marrera, Mrs. Julie Skoparis. My name is Susan Prandowski, and our superintendent, Mr. Derek Swenson. If you would all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Jason Hammond couldn't be with us tonight. He's our 8th member of the school committee. And with that, we would like a motion to approve the minutes of November 28th. Motion by Mrs. Holbrook, second by Mrs. Skoparis. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Very good. And moving on to correspondence recognition, Mr. Swenson.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Members of the committee, members of the audience, welcome. This evening, I am very proud and happy to acknowledge our wonderful Bridgewater-Raynham Regional High School chorus. They once again have performed in our annual chorus around the district, as we call it, with the Christmas carol around all of our buildings throughout the district. This is a tradition we started a few years ago under the direction of Mrs. Jillian Griffin, who I believe is here this evening as well. Hello, Ms. Griffin. And I just also wanted to acknowledge Lucini Bus Lines, who actually donated a bus to allow our wonderful students to go around and perform and spread their holiday cheer. And we'd like to invite them here around this time of the season after they conduct their choir around the district each year, and actually ask them if they'd like to come up and perform for us. And with that, I'd like to ask Mrs. Griffin if she can bring the students up. Fine.
But if I could ask you guys to stand again, we're going to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you so much for inviting us. We really love going around to all the schools and caroling, so it's one of our favorite days as well. So thank you.
It's beautiful.
Finally, this evening, we have the privilege to hear from 5 Bridgewater Middle School Girl Scouts from Troop 75117. who hold the rank of cadet and are working on their Silver Award project. The Silver Award is considered one of the highest awards in Girl Scouts, second only to the Gold Award, if I've done my research correctly. It's an honor to introduce Gwen Hansen, Zoe McLaughlin, Leah Pagan, Holly Nichols, and Kate Lockwood. You want to come up to the podium and give your presentation? While they're making their way up, part of their project, head right on over to that podium, if you would, is middle school students and anxiety. So they're here to present their findings about their project.
Thank you for letting us present tonight.
Hello, we are Girl Scout Troop 75117. My name is Gwen Hansen, and I am a student at the Bridgewater Middle School.
My name is Zoe McLaughlin, and I'm an 8th grade homeschooled student. In addition to Girl Scouts, I also take classes in musical theater.
Hi, my name is Leah Pagan. I'm in 8th grade at Bridgewater Middle School. I participate in marching band and National Junior Honor Society as well as Girl Scouts.
Hello, my name is Holly Nichols. I'm in 8th grade and I go to Bridgewater Middle School. I participate in chorus, National Junior Honor Society, and drama.
My name is Caitlin Lockwood and I'm in 8th grade at West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School. I'm part of National Junior Honor Society and I take part in my school's video club.
Last spring, we began work on our Silver Award project. The Silver Award is a Girl Scout Leadership Award dedicated to identifying a problem and working to improve the community. We all spent months working on this project, and we hope you consider our ideas.
We all decided that we should focus our research on anxiety in middle schoolers. We decided to do this topic because we all suffer from anxiety at some level and want to help others. We sent an anonymous survey to our peers in school asking things like main causes for anxiety and what the school could do, and got 38 responses.
The results of the survey showed that students had generally higher school-related anxiety than regular anxiety. Many students said that they wished they had a few minutes between classes to go to their locker, organize their books, or talk to a teacher.
We interviewed the school counselors at both of our schools. Gwen and I interviewed the 7th grade psychologist, Ms. Huber, last year during lunch. She told us that anxiety is one of the most common experiences middle schoolers face, and how rumors, tests, projects, and homework are all examples of minor events that might cause anxiety.
Leah and I also talked with Mrs. Smith, the guidance counselor. We said that we were all planning to make a website on the topic of anxiety in our peers. She seemed excited about this, and we enjoyed talking with her. We didn't have much time before we had to get to homeroom, so we only talked briefly. She told us some of the resources that the school offers. This included herself, the nurse, Mrs. Huber, and some community counselors. She said that she was willing to help us with our project and was very kind.
I also interviewed my two guidance counselors, Mrs. Wilder and Mrs. Pontus at West Bridgewater. One of the facts that they mentioned is 85% of their work has to do with anxiety. Both boys and girls have anxiety. It's just that girls will seek help more than boys. School projects, homework, and rumors raises kids' anxiety levels.
Many students, including myself, feel rushed and overloaded in trying to get ourselves and our stuff to class on time. With limited time between classes, there is not much time to collect ourselves.
When we go to our lockers during our only locker break after our first 2 or 3 classes, we have about 30 seconds to get to our next class. Having such little time, I end up shoving my books into my locker and grabbing the wrong books or forgetting books.
We believe more time between classes, a daily study break, and reduced homework will help reduce anxiety.
A typical schedule at Bridgewater Middle School starts with a quick attendance at homeroom and then straight to period 1. Period 1 ends at the same time as period 2 begins, leaving us no time in between classes. Our only break that we have is lunch, and after that, it is back to classes. Once a week, we have a study block time, but some students have other commitments and cannot be in ASB. Like students who participate in bands do not get a study period at all. We generally have 6 or 7 classes a day to go through back to back with little time to breathe.
In comparison, a normal day at West Bridgewater has 4 blocks each day with breaks in between. Each break lasts at least 5 to 6 minutes. That means we aren't rushing to our classes.
Some of the ideas that we have to reduce the school-related anxiety are time between classes to either talk with a teacher about staying after or just to ask a simple question about staying after. This would also give us more locker time, which will lead to a more organized school and less anxiety over rushing to the next class and the fear of being late.
To help raise awareness and understanding about this issue, we created a website with information and tips to help teenagers better deal with anxiety and manage their time.
We would like to have a link to the website we made on Power School that the students could use. This way, the parents and students could both access it. We would also like to leave some flyers in the guidance office. As we mentioned earlier, Ms. Smith said that she would love to help.
Thank you for listening to us, and we hope you will use this vital information to help reduce school-related anxiety in middle schoolers.
Any questions, I guess? If I could through you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Well, thank you all for your information and your input. I hope that you'll stay engaged as we go through our budget process and we look to our communities to fund some more of those folks that will give our students the support. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thank
you.
Hi, great job, by the way.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I don't think that we can stress enough that anxiety is obviously an issue at the middle school level, but we're even seeing it at the elementary level as well. So over the course of the last few years, we have been advocating for some supports to bring into our district to help combat some of the issues such as anxiety, school phobia, those types of things that our children unfortunately are dealing with within our society. So this is outstanding. This is great. This is something that I will share with my administrative team. We'll discuss this along with possibly members of the school committee and see if this is something that we could incorporate into our Power School app. So thank you. Great job. Happy holidays to you. Keep up the great work, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to shake your hands?
Happy holidays to you too.
Shake your hands.
You guys speak better than me already. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job, Swenson. Good job.
Very nice. And we will move on to our educational reports. Planning for Success update, Mr. Powers.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Superintendent Swenson. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I did want to just provide you a brief update on our Planning for Success, which you know is our strategic planning model that the district is currently engaged in. Seems like I was just here talking about Planning for Success some time ago, but obviously it's been a few weeks. So we've since our last school committee meeting, had an additional meeting with our consultant to work on our strategic plan, so I just wanted to provide you an update. We actually met this past Tuesday on December 18th, to talk about strategic objectives and initiatives. As I shared with you the last time, 4 major themes emerged during this process that the strategic plan will be built around. And those are curriculum and instruction, safe and supportive schools, technology, and facilities. So those are the 4 main areas that have emerged and that this plan will move forward to address. What we really focused on yesterday was designing and developing, and still in draft form, and I believe you may have a copy of it in your Google folder, hot off the presses, draft strategic objectives to address each one of those areas. We also broke into several different working groups to try to come up with some strategic initiatives to address those objectives. So our hope right now, between now and our next meeting with our consultant, which is in January, is to really solidify, have those really ready to go back to the working group to finalize in January, and our hope is to be able to turn around at the next school committee meeting in January and actually present to you, fingers crossed if all goes well, our strategic objectives and initiatives and really what our end results will look like. So we should have a pretty comprehensive draft, strategic plan for you to look at our next school committee meeting, barring any unforeseen hiccups that may happen. But we're on track to have that done for the next school committee meeting, and we're very excited about the process so far and where we're going. And I'm pretty excited to present, hopefully in January, like I said, if things go well, our strategic plan to you, or really Mr. Swenson as the superintendent's strategic plan.
Just that, as Mr. Power said, it seemed like yesterday he was standing here talking about that we're going to be doing our Back to the Future activities in August, and here we are already in December. We've made such progress, and we have an outstanding consultant that we are working with. Our committee and our group, though, is outstanding. Ms. Holbrook is part of that. And what I enjoy about this Planning for Success as a strategic plan is that it's input from a lot of different areas of the organization. It's not just myself and Mr. Power sitting in a room saying, okay, this is what we're doing for the next 3 to 5 years. And what I could say is, sitting on other strategic planning committees, this one is much different. This one is coming from ideas of, we did the root cause analysis, I think was one of the exercises that resonates the most with me, in that we identified an issue, and then we had to ask the question why 5 times, and we had to get down to the root cause of that situation and why that is an issue for us. And that's a difficult exercise to go through as the superintendent, because really, truly, you're trying to find out, what are the things that are happening on your watch that you want to obviously fix. But I got to say, those type of exercises really have been enlightening to us. And this is a plan that I know that is going to be a living plan. It's just not going to sit in a 3-ring binder on a shelf somewhere. It's something that I feel as though with the action plans we're going to be putting in together for the initiatives that go along with these strategic objectives that we came up with yesterday, it's really going to begin to move our district forward. So I'm very excited about this, and I look forward to next month hopefully finalizing the plan so again Mr. Powers can present that to us and we can start to put this plan into action.
Very good.
And there's a lot of things in this plan now that I will be tying into my budget presentation because all of these initiatives that we have, curriculum instruction, safe and supportive schools, technology, facilities, are all driven by budget, and the budget is driven by these initiatives, as Mr. Powers said so eloquently yesterday, and I stole his.
I was kind of proud of myself coming up with that. Yes, thank you. And Madam Chair, if I might add, one of the things Mr. Swenson mentioned is sitting in a 3-ring binder on a shelf. Our current district improvement plan is, 20 to 30 pages. This should really be no more than 5 to 10 when it's finalized. But it'll be 5 to 10 pages that people can read, understand, digest, and then actually put into action, as opposed to just 30 pages of print.
Looking forward to that. Very good.
Less is more.
And staying up there, Mr. Powers, we would like to have your input on the Blizzard bag.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, as you know, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has structured learning time requirements. What they've suggested the last few years is if districts are interested in creating alternatives to that to meet the requirements, which at the elementary level is 900 hours and at the secondary level is 990 hours of instruction, the districts can go ahead and begin to undertake that. It has to be initially a local decision, so the school committee would have to approve that process, approve the end result, and then obviously it would have to be shared with the department for final approval. The reason why they're suggesting this is obviously, depending on the years we've had in the past, some years we have 1 to 2 snow days and it doesn't become a burden or pushes into late June, but there are years, 2015, where we're pushing late into June and some districts struggle with having to go on Saturdays or take time over vacation. So what the department is saying is that if districts would like to go ahead and pursue alternatives to that, that it's well within their local purview to do so. The reason why I mentioned that to you this evening is Mr. Swenson and I have had some discussions about that, as well as with the administrative team, to see if it would even be a possibility. And so I stand here before you to really ask whether or not that would be something that you would want me to explore. Not really for this year, because obviously it would have to be a pretty comprehensive plan that would have to be presented to you. Really what the department is really requiring is that for every hour we miss, we have a planned educational hour. It's not just to watch a video and answer a few questions. It really, what we would come up with and develop really should replace a day of learning. And so therefore, I don't think just given the time that winter is upon us, that we would really have time to put something in place for this year. But I would like to be able to work with our administrators, lead teachers, department heads to start to develop possibly a plan to present to you either at the end of this year or even next fall going into next winter. But again, didn't want to go through that process if it wasn't something that the school committee was strongly opposed to.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Powers?
Just for people at home, can you just fully explain what a blizzard bag is?
Sure, and a blizzard bag is a term that's been coined really in this region, because this is really really originated. I know several of our northern neighbors, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, have what they refer to as blizzard bags in place. And the idea of that is whether it's actually a physical brown paper bag with work in it or a virtual bag, through Google Classroom or whatever it may be, is that assignments are created and developed in advance so that as soon as a snow day is called, and this would be the other thing, it may not necessarily kick in on that very first snow day. We would have to look at our calendar. If we're already scheduled to get out, say, fairly early in June, we might be able to build in those 5 days. But if for some reason we're already teetering on the edge of June, or if we're scheduled to get out on a Wednesday or Thursday or Monday or Tuesday, we might, and we have 2 or 3 snow days, we can make those up. Do we really want to go into the following week? This might be an alternative for that. So what would happen is that the teachers would actually develop lessons for all major content areas. So again, really the thought is that each day that is out, it really be replaced by a blizzard bag. So there would be assignments. There would be, it could be a variety of different assignments. It could be something as though, you're having a flipped classroom, so you might watch a video from a teacher, have some reading to do, some assignments to do, some research to do. But all those will be developed in advance by your teacher, tying into the teaching and learning that's going on. It might not necessarily tie into the exact day that you're missing, but because we have pacing guides, curriculum maps, we know, okay, in January, this is kind of the content, the unit we're on. We can go ahead and develop 1 or 2 days worth of activities that our students can complete. Now, the other thing that we would have to be mindful of is if we have a fairly severe storm, we might not have any power. So therefore, we'd have to build in, some leeway that students might have a full school week to turn this assignment in. Because, if we have a snow day tomorrow and power is out, there's no way they can then turn around and turn this assignment in on Friday. So we would have to make exceptions and some alternative plans for that. But it's something to explore. I'm happy to float the idea by the lead teachers, department heads, get a better sense from them. Like I said, Mr. Swenson and I have talked about it with our administrators, some positive feedback there, but I'm happy to come back in January and talk about it more, give you a sense of, the department heads and lead teachers, what their feelings are, and go from there. It really, and again, no final decision needs to be made tonight. I just wasn't sure if it was something that you wanted me to, start to explore. If you want to, digest that and think about it, and we can always have a follow-up conversation in January or February.
Mr. Powers, so you're saying in lieu of a makeup day, they're doing work at home, basically? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely.
I must confess that I'm
Not
that excited.
Initially, I'm not.
I feel that we haven't, because as soon as I say that, we're going to have a blizzard, so I feel bad even saying it. But I feel that in all the years I've been here, maybe 2 years of the 12, that we've really come up against the 5 snow days. You'd have to convince me that it's worth it, that there's really truly something in that bag that will be worth a day that we don't have to make up. Mm-hmm. And I want to know that it's not just the minimum, that the district as a whole is doing, and I don't want you to do a ton of work, but would everyone like him to come back in January with a better idea of, I don't want you to spend a ton of work and find out that nobody wants to do it, but maybe people do want to.
I can do some additional fact-finding for January.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
That's fine, but I actually think that it's a great idea.
Yeah.
That we should look into it more. But that, again, that's just my take on it. I think
I'll gather some more information.
I don't see a difference between asking a teacher to do a blizzard bag versus a absent plan or a substitute teacher plan. They have to have 5 days, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 days of sub-plans if they're going to be out. This would be just like that.
But they'd be doing the sub-plans inside, in the school setting, so you know what's getting done, versus if it gets home, how do you know if the students are really doing it?
Well, they would have to hand it in.
Yeah, I mean that.
And for grade.
Yes, all those assignments would actually have to be handed in. We'd have to, more than likely, I know some districts, again, our friends in the north, have set minimum requirements so that, let's just say 80% of the students across the district have actually turned their assignment in order for it to count. And if we drop below that 80%, then the day wouldn't actually count. We'd have to go an extra day at the end of the year. So there's definitely all those parameters that would be set. It's not just, we're going to trust you to read a book today. It really is, structured learning, assignments are turned in and graded. But again, happy to, gather some more information and continue this conversation. The good thing is, we have some time, because obviously we're talking about 1920. So happy to gather some more information.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, Ms.
through you to Mr. Powers, I think it's a wonderful idea, but I do also echo your input, just to make sure that if we are going to give them that day, that it's quality stuff.
Absolutely.
The only other question I'd have is if you could reach out and and find out how the schools to the north handle this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that considered outside of the contract for the teachers to do something additional, or is that within their realm?
That's a great question.
That'd be a question, because I don't want it to come back and say, well, we're doing extra now, so it's outside of our norm. So I don't know how they handle that in the north. Find out, would be great.
And I do share your concerns. We want to make sure whatever assignments we're putting together are rigorous and high quality. Also, it would be a situation too, as Mr. Powers had said, we would have to come up with some type of idea. Is it 80% of the district has to complete this assignment? We'd have to come up with, a timeline as to when these assignments are due. I will say though, the way I see it is, if we could create high quality Blizzard bags and assignments for those days, I think the educational value in January, February, March, hopefully no more than March, outweighs that of a makeup day in late June. So I would just kind of see it from more of the academic perspective. But I do understand it's new for everybody.
Keep an open mind, but you'll have to let me.
I will do my best. I
think it's new to everybody. You need to digest it, even when
Yes, I'll talk to my sister who has Blizzard bags in New Hampshire, and we'll see how that goes. But I will keep an open mind, and I will look forward to more information in January.
Thank
Does everyone, any more questions for Mr. Powers? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers.
And we will move on now. Oh, I'm sorry, you're back up here. For administrative and school committee reports, Mr. Powers will give us a safety and security meeting report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we had our safety and security meeting on Friday, December 7th, 2018. So I'd like to provide you a brief overview. It was actually one of our shorter meetings, but we certainly discussed quite a few points, so I would like to share those with you. Mr. Swenson welcomed all our safety officials and all members of the safety and security team. We then started with a discussion around vaping. Prior to our safety and security meeting, Mr. Swenson actually had a meeting with our local safety officials as well as a parent, and then we continued this conversation at safety and security. We're seeing an increased number of students actually participating or partaking in vaping. Not just specific to the high school, it is trickling down to our lower grades, which is obviously concerning for us. We asked some of the assistant principals to just share some data that we shared at this meeting. Just this school year, Bridgewater Middle School, and this was obviously again at the beginning of December, had 17 suspensions for vaping-related instances just this year. RMS reported none thus far. The high school, again, through the beginning of December, is at 20 suspensions. Last year, they were at 35 for the full year, and the year before, they actually only had 7. So we are seeing that, the numbers are supporting that. Ms. Fahey, through her expert survey, also shared that students are engaging in those type of activities. And, unfortunately, as situations happen at schools, we're finding more and more, talking to more and more kids. It really is kind of shocking the number of students that are participating, whether they're getting caught or suspended, but just having those informal conversations with students. One of the issues with vaping is it's sometimes very hard to detect, whether it's at home or at school, because it's in some cases smokeless, some cases odorless, or if it does, it has a very sweet smell. So it almost smells like it could smell like a candy or a Jolly Rancher or something like that. So many times parents are even unaware that it's happening where, maybe 10, 15 years ago, if a student was smoking up in his or her bedroom or, standing in the bathroom, you would notice that odor. We don't have that detection system anymore. And for whatever reason, I think because of that, students, kind of have that false sense of security that this isn't as dangerous as smoking tobacco or smoking cigarettes or cigars or whatever it may be, when in fact it's just as dangerous, if not more. So what we're trying to do is, as a district, we've reached out to our local Bridging Lives Coalition. They have some prevention and informational sessions that they already have planned that they've been doing in other districts. So we're working with them to try to come into the district, do some work here at the high school, and then even down at our middle schools, possibly even our upper elementary if appropriate. And then obviously we want to try to have some parental information. I know just as a parent, sitting through reading some of this material and being part of this coalition, it's quite eye-opening. To think that I have a middle schooler and hopefully he's not engaged in these type of activities. So it is concerning, but something that we feel like we're going to tackle. The state law is actually going to change after January to 21. We're hoping that makes a difference. Some of our high school students might already look the age, but certainly this will hopefully force the issue of checking IDs at the local establishments that sell these type of devices. Obviously, our safety officials, our chiefs of police are equally as concerned. We've talked to them about the idea of, much like they do with the alcohol checks and the tobacco checks, now obviously checking for vapes if possible. That obviously requires manpower and hours. So I'm not sure that will exactly happen, but all those things are in discussion. Mr. Fox gave an update on our district radios and communication. Mr. Fox and I, and really Paul's taken the lead on this, have talked the last few years about really unifying and consistently providing radios that are all similar. We've had different types of radios at different types of schools. None of them actually communicate or talk to each other. So Mr. Fox has really taken the lead over the last year and a half, 2 years, getting radios across the district that are all the same make, model, and that can actually communicate with each other. So Mr. Fox also talked about the programming of those radios and obviously assigning the channels so that channel 1 is a district-wide channel. Channel 2, for example, might be the high school, but everybody's radio, channel 2 is now the high school. So instead, before, channel 2 might be RMS, channel 2 might be Williams for the Williams, but now we've really tried to create some consistency to allow for better communication. Our school resource officers do have those radios, so if we need to get them during the day, we have access to our safety officials, which is great. The next item on the agenda was just an update on our ALICE intruder response, which obviously, as you know, stands for alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. This school year, like any other school year, we've obviously done staff training, and now we've begun to roll that out to the students. So our staff members, our principals, assistant principals, and teachers are working with the students at all levels, high school, elementary, middle school, to go ahead and start to conduct some of those ALICE drills. Obviously, it's going to look a little bit different at the high school than, say, it might at the Merrill, but the Merrill is obviously talking to the students about, how to safely evacuate the building if they need to, or how to stay in their classroom. Really, at that grade level, it's really taking the lead of the teacher, as opposed to maybe being more of an independent thinker, where at the high school, it's here's the information, you make an informed decision and now respond. Certainly, with the supervision and lead of the teacher, but in some cases, we certainly want kids to act and be safe. I'm proud to report, though, we have an e-learning portal as part of our ALICE partnership, where staff members can actually, after they've taken that initial training, and they can actually go in anytime and retake this. Of the 540 licenses that we have available to us, we're actually at 93% completion, which is phenomenal to be considered an ALICE district. There's other things that we have to do to meet the criteria, but one of them is to have a high completion rate. We've already matched that threshold and actually exceeded it, which is phenomenal. So 93% of our staffs, custodians, proctors, ESPs, teachers, administrators, school committee members have all taken that e-learning portal, which is phenomenal. So we're very proud of that, and that's something that we'll be able to offer every year as long as we continue our partnership with ALICE. We'll have access to this e-learning portal, so it's a nice refresher for our staff. And then Mr. Jovelos talked about a Bridgewater-Raynham CPAC presentation coming up for actually our first responders. I believe it's called ALEC. And it was designed by a safety official for his brother-in-arms and colleagues in the fire service. When first responders respond to a house or a school and they're encountering a special education student, they obviously may not have the training how to deal with a student that may have a learning disability or might have a physical disability or even some other type of disability. So this training is really geared towards that, dealing with students on the autism spectrum and the such. So that'll be Wednesday, January 9th at 6:15 at the Bridge Center. The Bridge Center is obviously great to us. They always let us have our CPAC meetings there. So Mr. Jovelos and Ms. Dyer have put that on, and we're pretty excited about that. And I do know our safety officials took the flyers, and they're going to share them with our staffs. And I believe there was another local one not too long ago that Chief Del Monte said he actually sent some officers too. So they are invested in this, which is great. And then one really last item was crossing guards. As you know, we have several crossing guards across the district. I shouldn't say several. I think we have maybe 3 that we actually employ, one on the Raynham side, 2 on the Bridgewater side, and then some of our custodians take on that role as well. We had a conversation with our chiefs. Is there possibly any training that we could provide them? In many ways, we give them a stop sign and yellow vest and roll them out. So we just want to make sure that, they have the training that they can actually go out there and do it effectively and efficiently. So we talked to the chiefs about that, and they said they would be happy to go ahead and provide that training. And the Mass Department of Transportation also has some PowerPoints and online learning that crossing guards can do. Which really, the other reason we were tackling this is, we know pay to ride is going away for next year, which means we may not. We may have more students walking to school. And so therefore, could it be a point where we actually need to hire more crossing guards? And if we do, we obviously want to have some type of training program out there already established. So that's really kind of what precipitated that. And then we just talked about our upcoming meeting dates. We have another meeting March 1st, 2019, and then our last meeting of the year is June 7th, 2019. And that is my safety and security report, Madam Chair.
Just thank you to all of our safety officials. We realize how busy they are, and they take time with us on a quarterly basis, which is great because we have open lines of communication with them, and we can share things that are happening within the district. They can share things from their field with us so that we can proactively put measures in place. I will just say the one thing, the vaping piece, last week, with the email that went out through the buzz, Mr. Powers gave me some information and a link for, I think it's Partnership for Drug-Free America. It was a link that gave parents some information about how to speak to their children about vaping. I can't stress enough how important it is that we start to have dialogue with our students and our children. We're seeing students now in grade 5 and 6 are unfortunately participating in this unhealthy activity. And it is a situation last night where I read an article that in East Bridgewater, they actually went into a vape shop, similar to what we talked to the chiefs about doing the other day, and actually were served for serving on selling to underage customers. So that is something that we have talked to the chiefs about. We'd also talked about possibly going to the town council in Bridgewater and going to the selectmen in Raynham, sharing some of the information that Mr. Powers shared tonight in regards to our suspension data, and that these things are happening now, not only at the high school level, but down as low as the 5th grade level. So it's definitely something that is on our radar screen. We're going to try to take a proactive approach and bring in some informational workshops for our students, but also some parent evenings, and we really encourage parents when we put that information out to attend these workshops. Sat at an assistant principal's meeting the other day. The assistant principal took out a shoebox full of vapes, and they look like flash drives on computers. They look like something you'd wear like around your neck as a necklace or a charm. So it's something that could be in plain sight in your children's room, and you probably wouldn't even realize it. So,
and that's really why, Mr. Swenson, too, just to echo what you're saying, we really encourage parents, all the prevention programs out there, usually entitled Not My Child or Not My Kid. This is another one of those examples where, just talking to some parents that we know their children are engaging this, and obviously they're beside themselves. But when talking to their children, you say, "Would you smoke a cigarette?" "No, I wouldn't do that. It's bad for you." "Well, why are you doing this?" "It's just as bad, if not worse." But they just don't see it that way. So really, just encouraging parents to have these conversations, do a little research on their own, because these devices are so easily concealed, and like we said, that doesn't really in some cases give off an odor or a vapor cloud.
And the pods and the cartridges are equitable to 20 cigarettes, which they don't understand. Nurse leader Marie Fahey provided our administrative team yesterday with some posters and informational documentation that they can set up throughout their schools. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible in school, but we encourage again parents to attend some of these meetings that we're going to be having and having those conversations with their children.
All right, very good, thank you. Sure.
Unrelated to all of what you talked about, I apologize, but it's safety and security. Lighting, the lighting at some of our schools is becoming a concern. The front of this building is fairly dark. I know at the old high school, Mitchell at the middle school, whatever you want to call it, on any given day, that parking lot is very dark. I think there's 2 lights over there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but none of them are LED brights. So if that could be something looked at across the board, not just these 2 buildings, but all over the district, especially in the winter when it gets darker much earlier and folks are leaving in the dark.
Okay, we'll talk about that with Mr. Fox as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Capel.
Yeah, the suspensions, do you know if there are any repeat offenders there, or are they all separate individuals? Or?
I don't have that information. I can certainly
Just
I
curious.
can find out for you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Sure, Mr. Moran.
A question and a comment. First question, and this could be to the superintendent or Mr. Power. I know the pay to ride is going away, as you had mentioned. We were talking about the crossing guards, which kind of jolted my memory here. Have we been able to do a evaluation on the sidewalks between 1.5 miles out to our schools? Are there sidewalks around all of our schools? Because I know the pay to ride is going away. I just don't know if we need to address some situations with the town. I know it's out of our budgetary influence.
I can tell you right off the bat, and just from my experience in Raynham, it's
From Sherwood Lane to White Street.
on Locust.
I think it all depends on which way you go. If you go towards, say, Mr. Swenson's house, up Pleasant towards Locust, no. At least down Locust. Going the other way, they've certainly done a lot of road work, and actually,
White Street has a brand new
White
sidewalk.
Street, they've redone the sidewalks there, and then even down to our Jackson Drive. I don't know if you noticed that, Mr. Swenson, they put a additional sidewalk there that had started to deteriorate. So I think maybe going that way, we might be okay, but we'd have to really look at it on both sides of the district.
Right, and I don't know if it's something that our transportation office can go out and kind of do an assessment, just so we have a list to give the towns, just so they know as they go forward with their, town projects and construction wise. I know as you just said, from down to Jackson Drive and Raynham's been done, but then Jackson Drive to Sherwood Lane, there's nothing there, and that's within the 1.5 miles. So that might be just, and I'm assuming there are probably other schools that could have some of those issues too. So if we could just come up with a list and give to the towns, and if you could maybe speak to the town administrators or the town managers and just say, hey, this is something that we'd like the town to consider upgrading, because it does fall within the 1.5 miles. So if you just do that, that'd be great.
We talked to Mrs. George about.
Absolutely, thank you. And my other comment was, if we could just find out when the Alice drills are going to be to the school committee members. I went to the training, and I actually came to watch a drill at the high school. It was very educational, and I'd recommend to all the school committee members, no matter if it's at an elementary school, RMS, any of those age groups. I think a school committee should at least see a drill in action. It's very informative, so if we could find out when those drills are coming up and let them know through the school committee, through Judy, maybe she can email it out, just so we can make sure that we don't have a quorum at one of them. But I think it's very educational for all the school committee members to at least go and see one drill.
That's a good idea.
Sounds like an idea. Very good. All right, any other questions? Very good, thank you, Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, and we will move on now to our long-range planning subcommittee report. Mrs. Holbrook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Long Range Planning Committee was charged with meeting with the superintendent and working with him on his goals for this year. The committee consists of myself, Mrs. King, Mr. Marrera, and Mr. Dolan. Together, we came up with 4 goals that Mr. Swenson will be evaluated on by this school committee in July. And the goals are as follows. Number 1 was student improvement. And it's to ensure the planning of professional development to improve educational services to the students in the district. The action plans that he will take will include survey staff to see what their needs are for the next calendar year, provide diversity training to include gender identification for all faculty and staff, and provide social-emotional training for all faculty and staff. The second goal, which is his professional goal, is through regular contact with key constituents, he will establish a supportive, positive district climate and culture. The action steps that Mr. Swenson will take will include hold regular group and individual meetings with administration, hold regular meetings with the union leadership, be visible throughout the district by regularly visiting buildings, classrooms, and other facilities throughout the school year, and administer an end-of-the-year assessment on the effectiveness of mentor system for the mentor and the mentees. The third goal, which is his district improvement goal, he will participate in the Planning for Success, a model that supports the improvement planning process and consists of 3 phases. Create a plan, align systems, and implement. In the 2018-19 school year, he will create a plan which envisions the future. Additionally, he will analyze the district's performance, educator evaluation, and community feedback data for trends and patterns, and backward design the improvement strategy for specific, desired student outcomes, as well as researching effective practices. The action plans will include, throughout the 2018-19 school year, the leadership team and the full administrative team will complete the strategic plan for the next 4 years. The 3 pillars of the plan will be developed. 4 pillars. Yes, 4, sorry. The 4 pillars of the plan will be developed. Action plans for the 2019 to 2023 will be written, and during the winter-spring of 2019, the Regional School Committee will approve the strategic plan. Survey teachers, school committee, and parents about what they envision the schools to look like in 2023. And the 4th goal, which is the district improvement goal also, throughout the school year, he will continue to improve site-based safety and security measures throughout the district. The action plans that Mr. Swenson will take will include traffic patterns. Building administration and public safety officials continue to evaluate and make recommendations for improvement. He will oversee that those recommendations are carried out. ALICE training and drills. He will conduct regular building-wide drills with police and fire departments and will ensure that recommendations, once again, are carried out, and facility upgrades. So those are his 4 goals for this year. In your Google Drive account, there's a folder for the superintendent's evaluation, and within that folder will be individual folders which will align with each of the goals. Mr. Swenson will be adding evidence of each of the goals to these folders. This evidence will help us in Mr. Swenson's end-of-the-year summative evaluation, for which all school committee members will participate in this year. That concludes my report, and I would like to make a motion to accept the superintendent's goals as outlined.
Motion by Mrs. Holbrook, second by Mrs. King. Any discussion? Thank you very much. This is a wonderful job, and we actually have goals that are measurable, easy to understand, and that it is a wonderful job. Thank you very much. So there's been a motion and second to approve the superintendent goals and educator annual plan. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Thank you very much. We look forward to your folders being filled out.
Thank you, Judy.
Very good. And moving on to the Mitchell School Building Project update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick update. We had our most recent school building committee meeting on December 10th, 2018. At that time, an HVAC consultant from RDA presented several HVAC options for the tentative project. Gene Raymond, our chief architect from RDA, then presented schematic designs of a repair and renovation and new construction options. The next school building committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 7th, 2019. We'd like to remind everyone that the school building committee meetings are open to the public, and we encourage the public to attend. We would also like to remind everyone that the Communications Working Group of the School Building Committee has begun presenting public updates on tentative school building schematic options. We once again encourage members of Bridgewater and the Bridgewater-Raynham Regional School District communities to please join us at one of the upcoming public presentations. The dates and locations of future public presentations are as follows. Thursday, January 10th, 2019. At the Bridgewater Senior Center at 10:30 a.m. Also that evening, Thursday, January 10th, 2019, here at the Bridgewater-Raynham Regional Regional High School in the auditorium at 7 p.m. Please note that childcare will be provided here in the cafeteria the evening of that event by Mr. Bewley in the base program. Additional George H. Mitchell Elementary School project and MSBA information updates can now be found at www.bridgewaterschoolproject.com. A Mitchell Elementary School project survey will be posted on this site from January 7th, 2019 through January 14th, 2019. We encourage all committee and community members to participate in this essential survey. We would like to once again thank the Communication Working Group of the Full School Building Committee and Mrs. Christina Ober from Daedalus Projects Incorporated for all of their efforts in conducting the public forums and the development of this informational website and the upcoming survey. That's what we have this evening for an update.
Thank you very much. All right, and moving on to childcare and transportation update, Mr. Swenson.
Yes, Madam Chair, we've had several members of our communities come to the podium over the course of the last few months in regards to the upcoming, as Mr. Powers talked a little bit a while ago, the elimination of pay-to-ride on the 2019-20 school year. So we have been proactively working out hopefully some plans to assist some of these families. We also have a situation on the Raynham side of the district where the Park and Recreation Program is at max and has a waiting list of close to 80 students currently. So first and foremost, this year we have been trying to come up with some type of plan that we could create, again, an overflow program to assist the Park and Recreation Program. We do have a meeting. We've had a few meetings to this point, but we have a meeting coming up on January 3rd. That will take place at Raynham Middle School. That's where we are foreseeing that program being in place. Part of that meeting will be the director from the Park and Recreation Program, Mr. Tim McCrae, who's actually been here, who's presented some information to the committee over the course of this school year. Myself, Mr. Powers, Ms. Macedo, we will have Mrs. Ellen George, who will help us with kind of figuring out the idea of transportation on how to get students there and to school in the morning from that site. And we're going and obviously the building principal, Mrs. Charette. So we're going to be talking about some of the logistics, really kind of trying to hash out and vet out a lot of the issues that may come up with this plan so that we could have some type of plan in place, hopefully early spring, so that we can then, as I know Madam Chair, Dr. Primadowski has asked, how's this information going to get out? Really, truly, we're going to still encourage parents to continue to apply for the Park and Recreation Program. The Park and Recreation Program, if they still have the waiting list, will then refer them to this program. Again, we're not going to be competing with the Park and Recreation Program. It's going to be a supplemental program to help assist them and help those parents who are currently on the waiting list. In terms of transportation, we've also, Mrs. George and myself, met last week, and she has been reaching out to some area transportation companies and seeing if they would like to take on a private pay-to-ride program with parents. And we have had a few vendors report back and ask some questions of us. I had one today that I kind of played some phone tag with, but hopefully I can catch up with tomorrow. And then what we're going to try to do is, after the holidays too, have those vendors come in, explain to them how our pay-to-ride program worked, and then see if they might want to take this on as a little cottage industry for their companies as well. Again, it would be privately negotiated between the transportation vendor and the parents, and it would not have anything to do with the district. So, with that being said, hopefully those are two options that will help assist some of our parents once the pay-to-ride program goes away in 2019-20. So I will keep the committee updated with any progress on both sides of these situations in terms of daycare and also possible transportation privately negotiated between the vendors and the families.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Swenson?
Having issues with this one today. Do you know if Mr. McCrae has said anything about possibly extending the park and rec hours? I know that was a concern for some families.
I think, and I don't want to speak for Mr. McCrae, but I know that at one point he stated there's something about the regulations that he goes under with the state. There's something about how the hours that he can be in place. I know that. I think
that'll
in the
be addressed at your meeting.
Yeah, I think the morning hours are the ones that really are impacted, because I asked because I know some parents, I know one parent had contacted me, and she's actually a high school teacher, and they had to be to school by 7:20 or whatever it is. The program, I believe, starts at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I remember asking him if he could roll back that time a little bit, and I thought he had stated that has something to do with the state regulations that Park and Recreation has to adhere to. But I will ask that question of him on the 3rd and see if that's an option as well.
Will you also try and get definitive numbers from him how many more slots might be available?
Yeah, and he was going to try to get that information because I asked him to try to figure out how many students are going to age out of the program and how many seats are going to be available, because that's going to be important for us, because if students age out, he can then, the goal is to keep the students at La Liberty in the afternoon, and now actually he's going to try to see if he can open up the Merrill site. So the students that age out of that program now, that might open up the seats right away for those students who are on the wait list, and they can move into that program and now give us kind of a truer sense of the type of students that we would have in that overflow program at RMS. So most definitely I'll try to get those numbers for us.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
I do have a question. And I don't know if this question's already been asked. If a child moves out of the town that currently uses the Park and Rec program, and you said there's about 80 right now currently on the wait list. How much time so if you're the number one on the wait list of 80, does that child flip over to the Park and Rec program immediately, like the next day, or is it by school year? Is it by month?
So you're saying if someone moves out and a seat opens up in the Park and Recreation program at La Liberty?
Yes, and they're currently in our overflow program. When do they? So I guess the easiest way to ask the question is, once they're in the overflow program with us, are they there for the entire school year?
No, I would say that no.
Or does
The
it
goal
go by
would be
each
for
month?
them to transition back to the Park and Recreation program at La Liberty. We would just have to figure out logistically what the parents' timeline would be. I mean, I wouldn't say we would wait 3 months for them to figure it out. I would say probably within a week's time we could work that transition out, especially if there's students either at the Merrill or La Liberty. Because then if they're at La Liberty, they would just stay there. If they're at the Merrill, they just come over on the bus over from Merrill. So, well, those are the types of things we're going to have to figure out. But I wouldn't say that they would wait out the school year. I would think it would be pretty instantaneous that they would be able to go back to that Park and Recreation.
And I was asking that because of the fees. If somebody has paid a fee, is it paid by the month? I don't use the Park and Rec program, so I don't know. Is it paid weekly? Is it paid by the month?
Usually,
the fee structure is going to be the same on both?
I think I haven't paid a bill since 2004. I'm pretty sure that it's by week. I think it's weekly, they do the park and rec. Well, yes, not that I'm not paying my bills.
Just to clarify.
Just to clarify.
I don't live in an accountant, no. No, so I believe it's by the week, but I get what you're saying, if
They've already paid to us,
Right.
and they're number one on the wait list,
That's
and
a
they
great,
roll
that's a
over.
great question.
That's why I didn't know is that, okay, you're gonna pay, if you're in our program, you pay each week, that way if a seat does open up, which it's very rare that it does. Once you're in, unless you move out to another community.
So I know what you mean, so if you paid a month in advance, then it comes to shifting monies between our program,
Right.
and that's why I think we'd probably keep it at a weekly basis. That's a great question.
All right, very good. Moving on, now, next up, we have the quarterly budget report, Ms. Macedo.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, and Superintendent Swenson. I believe you have in your packet a copy of the budget report for this month. We were doing this right in the middle of finishing a warrant this week, so unfortunately it doesn't include this week's warrant, so it's only a partial month for December. But nonetheless, it seems that we are kind of just moving along rather nicely at this time of the budget season. With our freeze that we put on back in October, and from our last report, there really hasn't been a lot of changes. We've had a lot of our accounts encumbered. We did have some changes, however, though, to some of the teacher line accounts. So if you look on page 3, we did have some funds that were still available in some of the lines. However, now that we have everyone on board and everybody in their place, we did have to increase the deficit that's in the high school teacher line, which means we're going to be taking out money from our school choice funds to fund those teachers, which is something we had talked about when we went through the budget process. We did say we were going to be using school choice funds this year. So we'll keep an eye on that. And the other accounts are more or less staying the same. We are in the black. If we go down to our substitute lines, which are located on page 4, we're still in the black. In that area, we've spent about $100,000. We still have almost $200,000 left to finish the year with, which is great. On page 5, we have our clerical subs as well as our ESP subs, and they are still accounts that are in the black and seem fairly healthy. And lastly, we have on page 7 our nurses, and their subline is still very healthy as well. We do have some extra funds that are showing up in the school psychology line. We have a psychologist who is out on leave, unpaid leave at this time. However, we are paying a substitute in another area, so I'm assuming that eventually these funds might probably need to be transferred over to the subline, depending on how long that person is out. And at the bottom of the page, well, actually it goes up to the next page on page 8. We're still looking at transportation, and we have some rather large encumbrances for our vans for special education, which have a lot of our accounts showing deficit balances. But again, they are encumbrances. They're estimates for what we believe we will be spending for the year. Many times that does change. Students either come back to the district, they go to a different type of placement, and the amount of money needed for transportation changes. So we'll keep an eye on those areas. The good news is that we do have funding in our out-of-district area because of the circuit breaker money that we will be applying, so we can maybe take a little from there if we need to going forward. So I've kind of got a place where I can go if I need to. In our heating, down at the bottom of page 8, as well as at the top of page 9, our utilities, our electricity, water, and telephone. Again, we have encumbrances in there that may or may not come to fruition. They're just estimates. However, we did during the budget process also talk about these areas using some revolving funds to help fund them. so that we could meet our budget. So we'll be keeping an eye on those as well. So right now, it's just the transportation and our utilities that we really, I think, have to keep a watchful eye over. And again, on page 11, as I mentioned, while we still have our out-of-district tuition, you're showing a deficit in the residential account. We still have circuit breaker funds to apply to this. We first have to spend the money and then reclassify that payment to the circuit breaker account. So as we spend, I keep reclassifying. So eventually that $659 will go down. Same with the $129,000. So I believe this is the area that we're going to be able to pick up some funds, provided we don't have any other placements that come up that weren't expected. And that's it for the report this month. Again, looks like we're in pretty good shape, moving along rather nicely. As long as our weather stays well, we should be doing pretty well this year. Holding on. Any questions?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
I don't know if this question is better for the superintendent or Ms. Macedo. You did bring up the point about the school choice, that we did take part of the last cycle of the budget to pay some salaries from last year. Do we have a game plan for that going forward? Because I don't know if we're going to be looking to make this a taking every year occurrence from the school choice fund to fund salaries. And the reason I want to bring this up is because we need to start hitting the budget. People understand the severity of not having the funds that we need to properly run the whole district. So
Well, there is a finite amount of money in that line account, and it doesn't come in as quickly as it could go out. It's not a large amount that we get every year. We have in the past, what we'll do during the budget process is put in all of the teachers into the budget, even though we reclass. That's why I have to reclass, because the teachers are in the budget, I just reclass the payment. So as we go through that budget process, all of the teachers are going to be there without using school choice money. As we go through the process, we may find we might need a little more, or we might need to do this, and that'll be something that we'll have to make those decisions as we see just where we are. The overall game plan would be to keep everyone in the budget and not rely on those funds.
Because again, we're not going to have those coffers build up the way we had it last year to utilize those funds. They're going to be much lower this year, especially if we tap into that and do that full amount, which I think we said was going to be about $500,000.
correct. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because that was a large chunk of change to pull out of that line item, and
In 1 year, school choice is not going to replace.
No, not at all. That's why I wanted to make sure we had a plan in place going forward. Because, I know what we request from the communities is not always, or not at all, what we get in return, and we have to play with the numbers to make everything work right. So I just don't want us to be going forward thinking that, that line is always there for us to use.
Right.
And I don't want the communities to think that that's always a fallback for us to use as well.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Mr. Dolan?
Yeah, Ms. Macedo, you may have started your report this way, and I apologize, I was making some notes. This does not include, the substitute line does not include till Friday, or does it?
It does not.
It does not.
It does not.
Thank you.
No, they had not posted payroll yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate your hard work.
You're welcome.
All right. And next, we have our quarterly treasurer report. Mr. Conley, District Treasurer.
Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Superintendent Swenson. You all have in your packet the income and expense report for the treasurer. Just one slight correction, I apologize for this, that the investment income in July should have $13,798.51 added to that. And I apologize for that I missed that, and I apologize for that.
Sorry, Mr. Conley, can you give us that number one more time?
I'm sorry?
That number one more time?
$13,798.51. So first, I present you the income that we have, the transportation fees. Chapter 70, nothing is in yet. That will come in later. Chapter 70, money that has come in, high school athletics, investments of funds, miscellaneous revenue that we have, Medicaid revenue, parking fee revenues, the rental on the school facilities, E&D, nothing out of that, or nothing in. Raynham's construction debt, Bridgewater's construction debt, Bridgewater's assessment, and Raynham's assessment, and charter school receiving. This is mostly income that we have and that we take in to the town and showing you the total income. And again, show the expenses for July payroll and taxes, July through November. This is only up to November 30th, just so everybody knows that. We had talked about that, whether it should be report, say in January for December, but we can go over that. The payroll and retirees, insurance and dues, the other warrants that we have, total expenses. Then we have total income for every month. And then I want to throw, and I think I did it the last time, I want to throw in the bank balances to show that we still have some money in the town. So.
Any questions? Any questions? Mr. Gelfi? Mr. Gelfi?
Where does investment income belong? Where does investment of funds that belong?
The 13,000?
Yeah.
Yes, investment of funds, it was in July, my apologies, yes, July.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Good. And next up, we have our recycling program, Mr. Fox.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Superintendent Swenson. Here to update you on our current recycling program. Due to unexpected economic shift, the recycling program that was subsidized for the district has ceased to exist. This was again something that was free for the district to remove about 10 6-yard containers throughout the district every 2 weeks. We are currently looking into how we can restore this program and what the best way to do that would be. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Do you have anything to add?
Do you want me to elaborate?
If you just kind of give an idea of.
I have to say, that is the shortest report I've ever received from you all.
I told her I'd keep it quick today.
If you just explain to the community as to why this company has gone out, and
Absolutely.
And it's a greater scale than just
Yes,
Bridgewater-Raynham.
I do not intend to get into politics here, but unfortunately, China has cut importing about $5.7 million worth of materials from the United States. This is something that is domestically impacted throughout all the states in the district. Because of that, this program, again, is no longer subsidized, i.e. impacting the school district. If we were to pick it up with a current recycling program, it would be at a cost to the district. Those costs can vary, and we are trying to figure out what the appropriate way is. How can we best maximize it? Currently, right now, we are only doing paper recycling. What other items can we throw into there to, again, maximize our recycling, but also be conservative and deal the correct approach to remaining a green community?
So we've put on hold our recycling. Is that the gist till we can find a more economical?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So what we'll have to do is actually bring some options to budget sub in January, because it's definitely probably going to be a cost to the district to move forward with recycling. So before we made those decisions, we wanted, because it does have a financial impact on the operational budget, we want to bring that to some of those options to budget sub and see if we're going to move forward with our recycling. Again, this company was free to us, but on the back end, they made money off of our paper to send to China. China no longer wants our paper, so this company exists in existence. So we gotta. This came to Mr. Fox probably about 3 weeks ago. So we've been scrapping since then, and like we said, we'll bring you the budget some options, and then some vote in January as to what direction we want to move in the district.
Do they take their bids with them?
Right now, we're working with a current in-town vendor to remove the current recycling containers, just because it does pose a hazard to the district if they continue to sit there. Paper is flying out of them, and like I said, it is a hazard for the district.
Any other questions?
Mr. Fox, what schools is this affecting? Where were we recycling?
Yep, so we're recycling at every single school right now. There's 4 containers at this site and about 1 throughout the rest of the district at each of the other sites.
So right now we're just trashing everything?
Yes.
So that's increasing the disposal fees.
Right now, we haven't had to order any extra pickups yet, so we are luckily squeezing out. They are smaller containers than our current 10-yard containers, so we haven't noticed an impact yet in that, but it is something that we are monitoring.
Any other questions?
At the high school, there is a recycling program for plastic bottles. At the other schools, there is not. And that's, again, something that we should further explore. Moving forward, the recycling programs that are out there are either cardboard or otherwise single stream. In the event that we do move to single stream, we should definitely encourage other items such as plastic bottles and other recyclable materials. Yes. Yes, single stream. Recycling just paper is not an option to most of these recycling companies.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, is there a cost for the bottles? Is there a cost for the bottles? High school here, so recycling of all the bottles. High school here, so that's still happening through a local vendor?
That is still happening through a local vendor. The Yes Club at the high school is in charge of that event and overseeing that. I'm actually not sure what the charge is associated with that, and if there is one, but I can get that information for you. I would just assume because a plastic bottle, you can take it for dispensing. I'm assuming that that is still being subsidized domestically.
That was my question. I just want to make sure that the whole program, the only program that we're talking about right now is
strictly paper. Correct. Yes, sir.
So it's not other stuff.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So it's not other stuff at this point.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vargas. Thank you very much. Next up, our personnel report, Mrs. Gorman. Next up, our personnel report, Mrs. Gorman.
Good evening, Madam Chair, School Committee, and Superintendent Swenson. My report will be really brief, too. As you recall, last month, we announced that the superintendent had appointed our IT manager, Michael Shantz, and that was effective December 4th. He is actually here in the audience. And I just want to run through a brief bio, and I'll have him come up and talk a little bit more about himself. So Michael comes to us from Blue Hills Regional Technical School in Canton, where he served as IT manager for the past 10 years. He has an associate's degree in computer science from Bismarck State College and a bachelor's degree in computer information systems with a minor in business administration from the University of Mary, also in Bismarck. He is also CompTIA A+ certified and a Google Apps certified administrator. Michael, come on up.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school committee members, Mr. Swenson. It's great to be on board here at BR. Mary pretty much gave you a background on myself. I am a resident of Raynham. I have 2 children. I've been married 9 years. I have my son goes to Raynham Middle School in the pre-K program. I believe that technology is one of the keys for student success, and I see BR as technology goes. I see it increasing in the future, and it's great to be on board. And here's to a great 2019. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
And that concludes my report.
And if you can can keep our laptops and our devices going. Very good.
I will just say, in meeting with Michael the last few weeks, somehow, some way, he's in my head. And that he knows exactly what I'm thinking and knows exactly what we need to do to move the district forward, which is a good thing. And I'm confident that he will be the person to drive that department forward and in turn drive the district forward from the technology side. So welcome, Michael. We've done a great job so far. Keeps coming back every day, which is a plus. So we appreciate everything he's doing in our tech department, which we know is not large in numbers, but they do a really great job of keeping us up and running every day. So thank you and welcome.
Very good. New business, we have the approval of gifts and grants. Mr. Swenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As always, I will read all of our gifts and ask for a consensus vote from the committee. First, we have ExxonMobil Educational Alliance Program, and they offer employees the opportunity to designate grant funding to particular schools. This year, a local ExxonMobil employee identified the Raynham Middle School, and they will now be in receipt of a $500 grant. The Mitchell Elementary School's after-school program, Traveling Tykes, was rewarded a $1,000 community grant from the Bridgewater State University Community Partnership Program. TJ Squared Robotics here at the Bridgewater-Raynham Regional High School was awarded $5,000 by the BSU and Community Partnership Grant Program for robot rebuild. And our annual, as we had this evening, the annual Bridgewater-Raynham Regional High School Traveling Choral Performance was made possible by a generous gift and donation of transportation to our elementary and middle schools by Mr. Lucini from Lucini Bus Lines. So we have this month's grants and gifts.
Very good. Motion to approve the grants and gifts mentioned by Mrs. Swenson. Motion by Mrs. King, second by Mrs. Holbrook. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Thank you very much. And next, we'll move on to the approval of warrants. Payroll warrants dated November 21st, 2018. Motion by Mrs. Lopez, second by Mr. Herrera. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. And then we'll have the general ledger warrants dated November 21st, 2018. Motion by Mr. Herrera, second by Mrs. Gilparis. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Very good. And next we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee? Very good. Seeing none. All right, we will move on to, I do have a few announcements. The Bridgewater Joint Town Council meeting will be January 8th at the 7:30 in the Academy Building. Our Excel graduation will be Thursday, January 10th at 6 o'clock. On Friday, December 21st, there'll be a half-day school. And our next school committee meeting will be January 23rd at the Raynham Middle School. And does any other committee members have any other announcements? Very good. Very good. 7:30. 7:30. And we do, did you have a?
Just to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy 2019, and thank everyone on the committee for all their hard work and all that you do to support our district. We truly appreciate all of you and appreciate our families, parents, and we appreciate as well. So happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swenson. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn at 8:24. Motion by 24. Second by Mrs. Harris. All those in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn. Done. Thank you very much, everyone.